Mark, and today it looks as if even the Tories might have enough of Boris Johnson's shenanigans. While Prime Minister Rishi Sunak celebrates a major political victory, his predecessor's career is at stake, and Partygate could become legally dangerous for him. In a professional Twitter account, users like to mark their latest great successes so that they are still the first to be seen days later. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's profile shows a post dated February 27th. In it, he celebrates the Windsor Framework, the revised and, in the opinion of many experts, improved deal with the EU, which is intended to prevent a hard border between the once civil war-torn part of Northern Ireland and Ireland, and that by moving the customs border into the Irish Sea. While many observers expected the Brexit hardliners in the party to revolt beforehand, this did not happen. Ministers who previously threatened to resign remained silent or even praised the agreement, said Anand Menon of the UK in a Changing Europe think tank, explaining the success of the legal framework. Even Boris Johnson, who is considered Sunak's most bitter political opponent, criticized the agreement with the EU only, let's say, relatively moderately. Maybe because he has other things to worry about right now. The ex-PM's career could take a dramatic and perhaps definitive turn, as The Guardian commented. And finally, Johnson is heavily burdened by a preliminary report from a parliamentary committee I talked about a few days ago already. Accordingly, the ex-Prime Minister is said to have lied to the lower house several times in the Partygate affair. He should have known that parties during the lockdown in 2020 in his seat of government and other authorities violated applicable corona rules. Sunak's predecessor is scheduled to comment on the allegations at the end of March live on television. So far, Johnson has justified himself by quickly questioning the report. The fact that the official Sue Gray, who once led the investigation into the boisterous celebrations in Downing Street, wanted to switch to the Labour Party as Chief of Staff, shows that the investigations were not objective. Well, that's what Johnson claims. The Independent newspaper described the ex-Prime Minister's defense as flaky. At best, this is paranoia. At worst, propaganda, it said. But is this the end for Teflon Boris, on which scandals often roll off like from a coated frying pan? Like so many, I shy away from writing him off forever, said Tim Bale, a political scientist at Queen Mary University, and he told that to the newspaper on Monday. But it's starting to look more and more like he's actually going to go out, not to die. The Parliament report suggests that there's some pretty damning evidence against him that could show he misled Parliament about Partygate. It seems to me that the Tory MPs really lost patience with him, said Bale. However, the possible fall of Johnson does not mean that Sunak's political career is secured, because he is facing a challenge this week that all prime ministers since David Cameron have failed to meet, as Bale emphasized. He has to get migration across the English Channel under control with the help, when they get help of traffickers. And Interior Minister Suella Braverman presented the draft law in Parliament this Tuesday. According to media reports, refugees who come to Great Britain by boat could be sent back immediately. And not only that, they are also to be banned from ever coming back to the island. And those plans are also controversial within the Conservative Party, partly because they result in high costs. And the PM would be doing the party a favor if he can stop the boats, Bale said. However, it's unlikely that he will succeed. Sunak is not a messiah, the polls also point to that, but he's perhaps the least evil, the least bad option, so to speak, at least from the Tory camp. Labour is still far ahead in the polls. But he got it to Parliament, the bill on migration, and I read tons of things about it today, and I read tons of things about this bill and international law. And once again, this government doesn't really care so much about international law. But Suella Braverman is kind of something Sunak inherited from Boris Johnson, and he had to let her in exactly because this is the stance of the far right of the Tory party. And they are still a little bit influential in this party. we will see what really happens in this party when we finally come to a vote on the Windsor Framework, which is, I have to emphasize this all the time, not necessary to have a vote on, but Sunak said he will have a vote on it. And so we will have to see how many Tories will vote for the Prime Minister's deal. But as I mentioned in another video already, I don't expect this to be happening too soon if he doesn't want to totally get rid of the DUP. Because when you look at the DUP, and I said that earlier, I know, but they will probably try to drag that on until after the local elections. And so if he wants the DUP to vote for this deal, because he wants them to vote for this deal, to have their backing to get rid of the trouble in Stormont, but then he would have to wait until the local elections. But all government circles so far always talked about in the next few weeks. And that usually meant 2 weeks. One of those 2 weeks is almost over. But I really don't see that happening next week yet. If Sunak would bring this bill to Parliament next week, he would really surprise me. But I'm not a prophet, so I can just judge on what I see for years now in the UK, and for many years, by the way, for those people doubting that. And with my judgment from experience, I do not expect it. But we found a lot of surprises in the UK in the recent years, especially since 2016, so nothing would be new. But coming back to Boris Johnson, I talked a lot about him in recent days, although he's not in office anymore. He's a backbencher in Parliament, but he's causing a lot of fuss, and that's why we always have to talk about him again. But yesterday, the thing with the knighthood for his father, then what he said about the Windsor Framework, it is... I can't take this man seriously anymore, and I have to, because this man is still dangerous for any incumbent prime minister. But I really don't know when this will stop. But I shouldn't be too worried about this. As long as this doesn't stop, I have content for my videos. So thanks Boris Johnson, thanks Brexiteers, thanks ERG, and so on. And I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.